The morning sun peeked through the windshield as Maya sat in her parked car, her hands trembling slightly as she stared at her phone. The rejection email from TechCore Solutions glowed mockingly on the screen. She had done everything right. Worn her best navy blue suit, arrived 15 minutes early, and answered every interview question with the confidence that came from her top-tier MBA and 8 years of successful project management experience. While your qualifications are impressive, we don't feel you would be the right cultural fit for our organization at this time. The words stung more than she wanted to admit. Maya closed her eyes, remembering how different she had felt walking through those sleek office hallways during the final round of interviews. In a sea of faces, she'd have been the only black woman interviewing for the senior project manager position. The memory of the interviewer's subtle shift in expression when she walked into the room played back in her mind. It was a look she had seen too many times before, that brief moan of surprise, followed by a forced smile. Maya had hoped things would be different at TechCore, especially after making it through 3 rounds of interviews. She glanced at her dashboard clock, 9:15 a.m. The morning traffic buzzed past her car, everyone rushing to their office jobs. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her phone and called her best friend. "They didn't tape me," she said quietly when her friend answered. The usual story, not a cultural fit. Her friend's voice crackled through the speaker. "Their loss? Girl. You know what? Remember that idea we talked about last month? About starting your own thing? Maybe this is the universe pushing you in that direction." Maya looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her mother's words from years ago echoed in her mind. When they close a door, build your own house. She had always laughed it off before, but now? Opening her laptop bag, she pulled out the business plan she'd been working on during late nights and weekends. The pages were filled with ideas, market research, and strategies. Her dream of starting a tech consulting firm that would help companies not just with their technical challenges, but with building truly inclusive workplaces. The rejection email still sat open on her phone, but something had changed in Maya's expression. There was a spark in her eyes now, a determination that hadn't been there minutes before. She started her car, but instead of heading home, she turned toward the local coffee shop where she did her best thinking. As she drove, her mind was already racing with possibilities. She had savings, she had connections from her years in the industry, and most importantly, she had a vision of what companies could become with the right guidance. Maybe this rejection wasn't an end. Maybe it was exactly the push she needed to begin something bigger. Pulling into the coffee shop parking lot, Maya grabbed her laptop bag and smiled for the first time that morning. "They don't want me in their company," she thought to herself. "Fine, I'll build something better." She walked into the coffee shop, ordered her usual medium caramel latte, and settled into her favorite corner spot. Opening her laptop, she created a new document and typed at the top, "Mitchell Innovation Group, Business Plan." The cursor blinked on the screen, like a heartbeat, steady and full of promise. What Maya didn't know then was that this moment, this painful rejection that had brought her to this coffee shop with her laptop and determination, would be the first chapter of a story that would change not just her life, but the entire tech industry's approach to leadership and inclusion. Want me to continue with part 2 in the same engaging style? The first month after starting her business was a whirlwind of emotions for Maya. Her tiny home office, squeezed into the corner of her living room, became command central for her new venture. She'd stuck post-it notes everywhere with ideas and potential client names, and her whiteboard was covered in goals and strategies. "You're really doing this," her mom said one evening, bringing Maya a cup of hot tea. She had been staring at her computer screen for hours, working on her company website. The clock showed 11:30 p.m., but time seemed to disappear when she was focused on building her dream. "I have to, Mom," Maya replied, taking a sip of the chamomile tea. "Every rejection, every not a good fit email, they're all pushing me towards something bigger than just another job." Her first client came through an old college friend who worked at a struggling software company. "Our team's falling apart," he had explained over coffee. "We need someone who understands both the tech side and the people side." Maya's hands had trembled with excitement as she signed her first consulting contract. That first project taught her more than any MBA course ever had. She discovered that most tech companies weren't just struggling with technology, they were struggling with people. Teams weren't talking to each other, good ideas were getting lost in bureaucracy, and talented employees were leaving because they felt unheard. Maya's approach was different. She didn't just come in with charts and presentations. She sat with teams, listened to their frustrations, and helped them find their voice. When a junior developer mentioned feeling invisible in meetings, Maya didn't just note it down. She helped create new meeting structures that gave everyone a chance to contribute. Word started spreading. A successful project turned into referrals, and soon Maya found herself juggling 3 clients. Her phone would ring during dinner, and emails would pile up overnight. But there was something incredibly satisfying about seeing the changes she was creating. One day, while grabbing lunch between client meetings, she overheard 2 people at the next table discussing their company's problems. Without thinking, she turned around and joined their conversation. By the end of lunch, she had another client. "The thing is," she explained to her new client later that week, "technology doesn't fail because of bad code. It fails because we forget about the humans using it." The client nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. Their last 3 projects had failed not because of technical issues, but because the team didn't work well together. Maya's calendar filled up quickly. She started each day at 6 a.m., reviewing plans and preparing for meetings. Some nights, she'd find herself still at her desk at midnight, but it didn't feel like work. This was her mission now. Helping companies see that success wasn't just about profit margins and market share. It was about building places where everyone could thrive. 6 months in, she hired her first employee, a brilliant project manager who had also faced similar rejection stories. Together, they started developing new approaches to company culture and team building. They called it the Human First Tech Strategy. One evening, as Maya was locking up her newly rented office space, a huge upgrade from her living room corner, she found herself thinking about that rejection email from TechCore Solutions. She still had it saved in her email, not as a reminder of failure, but as a reminder of where this journey began. Her phone buzzed with a message from a potential client, another tech company struggling with high turnover and low morale. As she typed her response, she smiled, thinking about how that rejection had pushed her to create something far more meaningful than just finding another job. The lights of the city twinkled outside her office window. Her small but growing team had helped 5 companies transform their workplace culture in just 6 months. Each success story added another piece to her vision of what the tech industry could become. A place where innovation came from inclusion, where different perspectives weren't just welcomed but sought after. Want me to continue with part 3 in the same engaging style? 3 years flew by like pages in a flipbook. Maya's company didn't just grow, it exploded. Her tiny team of 2 had blossomed into a powerful force of 50 consultants, each bringing their own unique story and perspective to the table. Their office, once a single room, now took up an entire floor in a downtown building, with windows that seemed to touch the sky. Every morning, Maya would walk through the office, coffee in hand, greeting her team. She made it a point to know everyone's names, their stories, and what made them tick. "A company is only as strong as its people," she always say, and she lived by those words. The transformation was incredible. Their client list read like a who's who of Silicon Valley. But what made Maya proudest wasn't the big names, it was the changes they were creating. One of their client companies had gone from having 0 women in leadership to a nearly balanced executive team. Another had completely rebuilt their hiring process, focusing on talent and potential rather than just fancy degrees. Remember when it was just us working until midnight? Her first employee, now her VP of operations, laughed during their weekly coffee catch-up. Now look at this place. The office buzzed with energy. In one corner, a team was brainstorming solutions for a gaming company struggling with toxic workplace culture. In another, consultants were designing a mentorship program for a tech giant. The walls were covered with colorful sticky notes and workflow diagrams, each representing another company they were helping to transform. But success brought its own challenges. Maya found herself working harder than ever, not just running the company, but fighting to maintain its soul as it grew. She refused to become one of those cold, corporate machines she'd set out to change. One particular project stood out. A major social media company had hired them after facing backlash for their lack of diversity. The CEO had expected a quick fix, maybe a few workshops and some new hiring guidelines. Instead, Maya and her team dug deep, revealing problems that went right to the company's core. Your algorithm team is all people with the same background, same experiences, Maya had told the CEO in a tense meeting. How can you expect to create a platform that works for everyone when your creators all see the world the same way? It wasn't always easy. Some clients pushed back, clinging to their old ways. Others wanted quick fixes to deep-rooted problems. But Maya and her team stood firm. They weren't just consultants. They were change makers. The real magic happened in the small moments. Like when a junior developer at a client company sent Maya an email saying how, for the first time, she felt heard in meetings. Or when a team leader called to share that his department's productivity had doubled since implementing their inclusive leadership strategies. Their reputation grew beyond just fixing workplace problems. Companies started coming to them before things went wrong, wanting to build better foundations from the start. Maya's firm became known as the go-to experts for creating workplaces where innovation and inclusion went hand in hand. One afternoon, while reviewing their quarterly results, Maya found a statistic that made her heart soar. 85% of the companies they'd worked with reported improved employee satisfaction, and 73% saw increases in innovation and productivity. We're not just changing companies, she told her team during their monthly all-hands meeting. We're changing the way the tech industry thinks about success. The old rejection email from TechCore was still saved in her archive folder. Sometimes, on particularly challenging days, she'd open it, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. That rejection had pushed her to build something far bigger than any job title could offer. As the sun set behind the city skyline, casting an orange glow through their office windows, Maya watched her team packing up for the day. Conversations and laughter filled the air, a mix of different voices, backgrounds, and stories, all united by a shared mission to make the tech world better. Little did she know that the biggest challenge and opportunity of her career was just around the corner, and it would bring her full circle in a way she never could have imagined. Want me to continue with part 4 in the same engaging style? It was a regular Tuesday afternoon when the call that would change everything came through. Maya was in the middle of her usual lunch break, a quick sandwich at her desk while reviewing client reports, when her assistant buzzed in. "There's a call from Riverstone Executive Search," her assistant said. "They're representing TechCore Solutions. They say it's important." Maya nearly choked on her sandwich. TechCore Solutions, the same company that had rejected her 3 years ago. The same rejection that had sparked her entire journey. Setting down her lunch, she took a deep breath and picked up the phone. "The board is looking for a new CEO," the headhunter explained, her voice crisp and professional. TechCore has been struggling. Their market share has dropped 40% in the last 2 years. Employee turnover is at an all-time high. They need someone with a proven track record in transformation and innovation. Maya listened, her free hand absently playing with her pen. The headhunter continued listing TechCore's problems: low morale, falling stock prices, failed product launches. It was like listening to a checklist of everything her company had been helping other businesses fix. "Your name keeps coming up in our research," the headhunter said. "The work you've done transforming tech companies. It's exactly what TechCore needs right now." The irony wasn't lost on Maya. She glanced at the wall of her office, where she'd framed her company's first dollar earned. Right next to it was a photo of her tiny home office from 3 years ago, that corner in her living room where it all started, after TechCore's rejection. They have no idea, do they? Maya thought to herself. They don't remember the black woman they rejected for not being a cultural fit. After the call, Maya walked to the office kitchen to get some water. Her mind was spinning. Through the glass walls, she could see her team at work, diverse, talented people who had helped her build something amazing. People who might never have had these opportunities if she'd gotten that job at TechCore. Her VP of operations found her there, staring out the window at the city skyline. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, pouring herself some coffee. Maya told her about the call. As she spoke, she realized how much had changed. 3 years ago, she had been nervous walking into TechCore's offices for an interview. Now, they were asking her to run the entire company. "Life has a funny way of coming full circle," her VP said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "But the question is, do you want to go back?" That evening, Maya stayed late at the office, something she hadn't done in months. She pulled up TechCore's latest news coverage on her computer. The stories painted a clear picture. A company stuck in old ways, refusing to adapt, losing talented people to more progressive competitors. She thought about all the companies her team had helped transform. All the lives they'd changed. Could they do the same for TechCore? More importantly, should they? Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. "How was your day, baby?" Maya smiled, remembering all those nights her mother had listened to her cry after rejections, after difficult days, after doors had been closed in her face. "Got an interesting offer today, Mom," she typed back. "Remember that company that rejected me? They want me as their CEO now." Her mom's response came quickly. "God doesn't close a door without opening a window. Sometimes that window leads to the whole building." Maya looked around her office, at the awards on the walls, the thank you notes from employees whose careers she'd helped transform, the pictures of her team celebrating their successes. 3 years ago, she had wanted to prove TechCore wrong. Now, she had the chance to do something much bigger. Help them become better. The city lights twinkled outside her window as night fell. Tomorrow, she would have to make a decision that would affect not just her future, but the futures of hundreds of employees at both companies. But for now, she sat back in her chair, allowing herself to appreciate the beautiful irony of it all. Want me to continue with part 5 in the same engaging style? Maya spent the next week in a strange state of mind, wrestling with the biggest decision of her career. During the day, she ran her company as usual, but her nights were filled with deep thinking and endless pros and cons lists. One evening, she decided to visit her old neighborhood coffee shop, the same one where she'd started writing her business plan 3 years ago. The familiar smell of coffee beans and warm pastries brought back memories of those early days, sitting here with nothing but dreams and determination. "The usual?" the barista asked. She'd been coming here so long that they still remembered her order. With her caramel latte in hand, Maya settled into her old corner spot. Opening her laptop, she pulled up the research she'd done on TechCore's current situation. The numbers told a clear story. Employee satisfaction at an all-time low, talented people leaving in droves, and a company culture stuck in the past. It was exactly the kind of challenge her firm specialized in fixing. Her phone lit up with a text from her best friend. "Had dinner yet? I'm bringing Thai food to your place. We need to talk about this TechCore thing." An hour later, they sat on Maya's couch, surrounded by takeout containers. "Okay, give me the real deal," her friend said, pointing a chopstick at her. "What's holding you back?" Maya sighed, pushing her noodles around. "What if I go in there and can't change anything? What if I become part of the system I've been fighting against? Or worse, what if I succeed, and it feels like I'm validating their original rejection?" Her friend put down her food and looked at Maya seriously. Remember what you always tell your clients. Change happens from the inside out. Maybe this is your chance to prove it. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She found herself standing on her balcony, looking out at the city lights. Below, late-night traffic moved like glowing rivers through the streets. Somewhere out there was the TechCore building, where 3 years ago, she'd walked out feeling small and rejected. The next morning, she called a meeting with her leadership team. They gathered in the conference room, curiosity on their faces. Maya had always believed in transparency with her team. They deserved to know about decisions that could affect their future. TechCore Solutions wants me as their CEO, she announced. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Yes, the same TechCore that rejected me 3 years ago. Her VP of Operations let out a low whistle. Talk about a plot twist. Maya continued, I've been thinking about what we've built here. We've helped dozens of companies change their culture, but we've always been outsiders looking in. What if we had the chance to prove our methods from the top down? One of her team leaders spoke up. But what about us? What happens to everything we've built here? It was a valid question, one that had kept Maya up many nights. She looked around the room at the faces of people who had trusted her vision, who had helped build this company from nothing. That's exactly why I'm considering it, Maya explained. Imagine what we could do with a real-world case study. Transform one of Silicon Valley's oldest tech companies into a model of inclusive innovation. Show everyone that our methods work, not just as consultants, but as leaders. The discussion lasted hours. Her team asked tough questions, shared concerns, and offered perspectives she hadn't considered. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the conference room, Maya felt something shift inside her. She remembered her mother's words about building her own house when doors closed. Maybe this wasn't about entering someone else's house anymore. Maybe it was about rebuilding one from the foundation up. That evening, Maya sat at her desk and drafted 2 emails. One to her team, outlining her vision for the future. The other to the headhunter, accepting the invitation to interview for the CEO position at TechCore. As she hit send, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The same feelings she'd had 3 years ago in that coffee shop, starting her own company. But this time, she wasn't an outsider hoping to get in. She was a leader preparing to transform an industry from within. Want me to continue with part 6 in the same engaging style? The morning of the board presentation arrived with a mix of sunshine and clouds. Perfect weather to match Maya's mood. She stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her blazer. This time, she wasn't wearing the navy blue suit she'd worn to her previous TechCore interview. Instead, she chose a bold red blazer, her power color, as her mom called it. You've got this, she whispered to her reflection, thinking about how far she'd come from that day 3 years ago. Her phone buzzed with good luck messages from her team. Each one made her smile, reminding her that she wasn't just representing herself anymore. The TechCore building looked exactly the same, all glassed and steel reaching into the sky. But this time, when Maya walked through those front doors, she held her head higher. The security guard gave her a VIP visitor badge, quite different from the standard visitor sticker from her last visit. In the elevator ride to the top floor boardroom, Maya reviewed her mental notes. She'd spent weeks preparing, not just company statistics and turnaround strategies, but something more important, her vision for what TechCore could become. The boardroom was intimidating. A long table surrounded by serious faces, most of them older men in expensive suits. Maya set up her presentation with steady hands, remembering how she practiced in front of her bathroom mirror at least 20 times. Good morning, she began, her voice clear and confident. Before I start, I'd like to tell you a story about transformation. She could see them lean forward slightly, interested. They'd probably expected another dry presentation about market strategies and profit margins. 3 years ago, I walked into this building for a job interview, Maya continued, She noticed one board member's eyes widen in recognition. I was told I wasn't a cultural fit. Today, I run a company that's helped transform some of your biggest competitors into industry leaders. The room grew quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. That rejection turned out to be the best thing that could have happened, she said, clicking to her first slide. Because it taught me something crucial about the tech industry. Sometimes the best talent doesn't fit into your culture. Sometimes your culture needs to fit the talent. For the next hour, Maya laid out her vision. She showed them data from companies her firm had transformed. She explained how diverse teams led to more innovation, better products, and higher profits. She wasn't just selling herself. She was selling a complete revolution in how they did business. Then came the questions. The board members didn't hold back. These changes you're proposing, one asked, they're quite dramatic. How can you be sure they'll work? Maya smiled. Because I've done it before. Multiple times. But don't take my word for it. She pulled up slides showing before and after metrics from her client companies. The numbers spoke for themselves. Another board member, the one who had recognized her, spoke up. I remember your previous interview here, he said. I have to ask, why would you want to come back? The room fell silent again. This was the moment Maya had prepared for. Because TechCore has something most companies don't, the potential to be a catalyst for industry-wide change. You're not just another tech company. You're one of the originals. When you transform, others will follow. She continued with passion in her voice, I'm not interested in coming back to prove you wrong about that rejection. I'm interested in proving that TechCore can be right about the future. The presentation ran over its scheduled time, but nobody seemed to mind. The questions kept coming, and Maya answered each one with a mix of confidence and honesty that she developed over years of running her own company. As she packed up her materials afterward, several board members lingered to talk more. She could feel the energy in the room had shifted. These weren't just polite post-interview conversations. There was genuine excitement in their voices. Walking out of the building, Maya felt different than she had 3 years ago. Last time, she'd left feeling defeated. This time, she left feeling powerful. Whether they chose her or not, she'd shown them exactly who she was and what she could do. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mom. How did it go, Vavi? Maya looked up at the TechCore building, smiling. It went exactly how it needed to. She typed back. I showed them what they missed the first time. Want me to continue with part 7 in the same engaging style? The news broke on a Monday morning in January. TechCore Solutions names new CEO blazed across tech news headlines. Maya's phone wouldn't stop buzzing with congratulations messages, but she was focused on something else. Her first day walking into TechCore as its chief executive officer. She arrived early, before sunrise. The parking spot labeled CEO made her pause for a moment. Just 3 years ago, she parked in the visitors section for that failed interview. Now, she held the keys to the whole company. The security guard did a double take when she showed her new ID badge. Welcome aboard, ma'am, he said with a warm smile. She made a mental note to learn his name. Everyone in the building mattered, from the cleaning staff to the top executives. Her new office was bigger than her entire first apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the city waking up. But Maya didn't sit down to admire it. Instead, she rolled up her sleeves and got to work. First on her agenda, a company-wide meeting. The main auditorium was packed. Hundreds of faces looked up at her, some curious, some skeptical, some hopeful. She could feel the tension in the room. They'd been through 3 CEOs in the past 2 years. I know what you're thinking, she began, skipping the usual corporate speech they'd probably expected. You're wondering if I'm just another CEO who'll make big promises and disappear in 6 months. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. But here's the difference. I'm not here to just run this company. I'm here to transform it. and I need every single one of you to help me do it." She shared her story, not the polished version, but the real one. About being rejected, about building her own company, about coming back. The room grew quiet as she spoke. She could see people leaning forward, listening intently. That first day was a whirlwind. Maya installed a suggestion box outside her office, not a digital one, but an actual box. Sometimes people need to know their words are physically reaching someone, she explained to her confused assistant. By the end of the first week, she'd rolled out her initial changes. The biggest one: blind recruitment for all positions. No names, no photos, no colleges, just skills and experience. Some HR managers pushed back, but Maya stood firm. "If I had been hired 3 years ago," she told them, "I wouldn't be your CEO today. Think about that. Think about all the talent we might be missing." She brought in her old team to help implement new mentorship programs. Every senior employee was paired with a junior one, but with a twist: they had to be from different backgrounds. "Innovation happens when different perspectives meet," became her catchphrase. The hardest part was breaking down the old boys club mentality in upper management. In her second week, during a crucial meeting, an executive tried to talk over her. Maya let him finish, then said quietly, "In my company, we had a rule: everyone gets heard. Even the CEO. Especially the CEO." She started having lunch in the company cafeteria, sitting with different teams each day. People were nervous at first. It wasn't every day the CEO asked about your projects while eating a sandwich. But slowly, the walls started coming down. 1 month in, she found a letter in the suggestion box that made her tear up. A junior developer wrote about how, for the first time, she felt like she could speak up in meetings. "Something's different now," the letter said. "It feels like we're finally being seen." Maya kept that letter in her desk drawer. On tough days, when the old guard resisted change or when shareholders got nervous, she would read it again. It reminded her why she'd taken this job. The changes weren't just symbolic. She introduced flexible working hours, created nursing rooms for new mothers, and established prayer spaces for religious employees. Small changes that sent a big message: everyone belongs here. At the end of her first month, Maya stood at her office window, watching the sunset. Her old rejection email was now framed on her wall, not as a reminder of failure, but as a testament to how far she'd come. More importantly, it was a reminder of how far TechCore still had to go. Her phone buzzed. Another message in the company-wide channel she'd created. "Thank you for making us feel like we matter." Maya smiled. The real work was just beginning. Want me to continue with part 8 in the same engaging style? 2 years flew by like a whirlwind of change at TechCore. The company that once rejected Maya for not being a cultural fit had become unrecognizable, in the best possible way. Walking through the office on a typical morning, Maya could hear different languages being spoken in the break room, see prayer rooms being used respectfully, and watch teams collaborating with an energy that hadn't existed before. The transformation wasn't just in numbers, it was in the air itself. "Remember when this floor was all identical suits?" her assistant commented one morning, gesturing to the now vibrant office space. People dressed comfortably, expressing their personalities while maintaining professionalism. The rigid dress code that had once symbolized corporate conformity was gone. The changes had faced resistance at first. Some longtime executives had quit, claiming the company was losing its identity. Maya remembered the day one senior VP stormed into her office, red-faced about the new hiring practices. "We're a tech company, not a charity," he'd shouted. Maya had stayed calm, pulled up the quarterly results on her screen, and simply said, "Yes, we are a tech company. One that's just had its most innovative quarter in 5 years. Would you like to see how many of those new ideas came from our diverse hires?" The numbers told the story better than any argument could. Employee satisfaction scores had jumped from 62% to 91%. Staff turnover dropped by 60%. But most impressively, revenue had grown by 45% as new perspectives led to better products and solutions. One of Maya's proudest moments came when a young intern stopped her in the hallway. "My mom used to work in tech," the intern said, "but she quit because she felt pushed out. I almost didn't apply here because of TechCore's old reputation. But now I'm telling her she should come back." The company's mentorship program had become a model for the industry. Other tech giants were starting to copy it, but they couldn't quite replicate the special sauce, the genuine commitment to change that Maya had built into TechCore's DNA. During a particularly successful product launch, Maya received an email from that board member who had recognized her during her CEO interview. "I was wrong about you twice," he wrote. "First when we rejected you, and then when I doubted these changes would work. Thank you for proving me wrong." But the real magic happened in the small moments. Like when a team of developers from 5 different countries created a groundbreaking accessibility feature because they actually understood different users' needs. Or when a cleaning staff member's suggestion about energy efficiency led to massive cost savings across all TechCore buildings. Maya had replaced the old suggestion box with a digital system, but kept the physical box too. "Sometimes the old ways and new ways can work together," she'd explain to visitors. It became a symbol of how TechCore was bridging its past and future. The media started noticing. Tech magazines wrote about the TechCore transformation. Business schools began using them as a case study. But Maya's favorite article was a small blog post written by an employee's child. "My mom says work feels like home now." During a company-wide celebration of their 2-year turnaround, Maya watched as teams mingled freely, sharing stories and laughs. The old hierarchy that had once divided people was gone. In its place was something more powerful, genuine connection. "We didn't just change the company," she told her leadership team during their weekly meeting. "We proved that inclusion isn't just a nice word for HR presentations. It's the key to survival in modern business." Late one evening, as Maya was leaving the office, she passed the wall where employee photos hung. 2 years ago, it had looked like a copy-paste of the same type of person. Now it was a vibrant mosaic of faces, stories, and backgrounds. Her phone buzzed with the latest company metrics. Employee satisfaction at an all-time high, market share growing, and most importantly, a waiting list of talented people wanting to join TechCore. Maya smiled, remembering how she'd once sat in her car, staring at a rejection email from this very company. Sometimes, she thought, rejection is just life's way of preparing you for a bigger role in the story. Want me to continue with the final part 9 in the same engaging style? 5 years to the day after that rejection email, Maya stood on the stage at TechCore's annual meeting. The audience was packed with employees, investors, and media, all eager to hear about another record-breaking year. But Maya had something different planned for this speech. "Today isn't just about our numbers," she began, looking out at the sea of faces. "Though I have to say, they're pretty amazing." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew TechCore had just posted its best financial results in company history. 5 years ago, I sat in my car outside this building, reading an email that said I wasn't a cultural fit for a mid-level position. The room grew quiet. Many had heard pieces of this story, but never the whole thing. She clicked to her first slide, a screenshot of that old rejection email. "I kept this email, not because I'm bitter, but because sometimes life's biggest setbacks lead to our greatest comebacks." Maya walked across the stage, her heels clicking softly. "That rejection led me to start my own company, to help other businesses understand that diversity isn't just a checkbox, it's a superpower. And eventually, it led me right back here, not as an applicant, but as your CEO." The next slide showed TechCore's transformation in numbers. 60% increase in workplace diversity, 45% revenue growth, and unprecedented innovation scores. But Maya didn't linger on these stats. Instead, she pointed to the back of the room, where a new employee was helping with the event setup. See that young woman? Last month, she told me she'd applied to TechCore 3 times over the past 6 years. The first 2 times, she was rejected. Now she's leading our newest AI project. Maya paused, letting that sink in. The talent was always there. We just had to learn how to see it. She shared stories from the past 5 years, the prayer rooms that became meeting spots for interfaith dialogues, the mentorship program that had launched countless careers, the product innovations that came from diverse perspectives. But here's the real magic. Maya continued, her voice warm with emotion. We didn't just change TechCore. We helped change an industry. She showed headlines from other tech companies following their lead, implementing similar programs, transforming their own cultures. An old photo appeared on the screen. Maya in her tiny home office, starting her consulting firm. Sometimes rejection is just redirection. Sometimes not fitting in means you're meant to help create something new. The room was silent now, hanging on every word. Maya knew why. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was the story of everyone who'd ever felt like an outsider, everyone who'd been told they didn't fit. Today, I'm announcing something special, she said, smiling. The TechCore Future Founders Program. We're going to fund and mentor people who've been rejected by the tech industry, people with great ideas, but who might not fit the traditional mold. The applause was deafening. Maya waited for it to quiet down before continuing. And the first recipient? That young woman I mentioned earlier, the one we rejected twice. She has an incredible idea for accessible technology. We're not just giving her funding. We're giving her a chance to prove what we almost missed. As she wrapped up her speech, Maya shared one final slide, a split screen of her first visitor badge from 5 years ago and her current CEO badge. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. But it's not about getting revenge or proving people wrong. It's about proving what's possible when we give everyone a chance to belong. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. But what meant more to Maya were the tears she saw in people's eyes. Tears of recognition, of hope, of belonging. Later that evening, back in her office, Maya looked out at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mom. Proud of you, baby. You didn't just open doors, you built new ones. Maya smiled, touching the frame holding that old rejection email. What had once been a symbol of exclusion had become a beacon of transformation. She turned rejection into revolution, and in doing so, helped create a future where hopefully fewer people would have to read emails like that one. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. And somewhere out there, someone else was sitting in their car, reading a rejection email, about to start their own journey of transformation. Remember, Maya whispered to herself, sometimes not fitting in is the best fit of all. End of story. Would you like me to write any other stories or expand on any particular part of this one?